Hello, this is Andrew. We have the XPEDO M-FORCE 8 pedals today. We're going to unbox them and then get some weights and things. So the main thing that makes this pedal different from the R-Force 6 is that it's a double-sided pedal. You've probably seen the review on Missing Remote for the R-Force 6, which is probably the ultimate weight weenie pedal for anyone who likes to use SPD or mountain type pedals. And then these are more intended for mountain, where the M in M-Force is probably for mountain, the R in R-Force is probably for road. These are more for mountain or cross or gravel or not road. And because of that, they are dual-sided, and they're probably designed to clear mud and ice and snow and things like that a little bit better than the R-Force 6 is. Of course, there's going to be a weight penalty, so let's figure out what it is. Claimed weight is 215. So we have 107, 1, and 215, so right on the money. It's worth noting that these are titanium spindled pedals. So anyone over, looks like 85 kilo or 187 pounds will need to look elsewhere. They do come with some cleats. They are also, or should be, SPD compatible. But let's go ahead and weigh these. Oh, they feel heavy. So yeah, I can tell you right now that's more than an SPD cleat. I think SPD cleats are about 51 grams. And then the bolts all in make it 64. Probably should get the just the bolts 7. So that's pretty much all there is to the unboxing, but we'll have a quick look at it. Obviously these are double-sided. Looks like this is probably a 5 millimeter. Nope. 6. So you'd use a 6 mil there, and I don't think I have an 8 on here, but something obviously quite a bit bigger, 8 or a 10 on the other side to open it up. So that's how you would service the pedal. There's a metal bearing shield here. You can see that they spin really nice. So next would get these installed on the bike and start riding. So I just finished my first ride with the XPEDO M-FORCE 8s, and I noticed something interesting. And this is totally my fault, so I mean, just to be clear, I'm not blaming XPEDO for this. But the pedals, I didn't check this, and that's why it's my fault. I didn't check this before I left. But the pedals are actually set up with different tensions. So this is the right side, the drive side, and it looks to be pretty close, which was a pretty high tension. But then on the non-drive side, the tension here, you can see, is not only a little bit different on either side to side, but it's also incredibly loose. So that's just something that I usually check. I just didn't think to check it in this case. But I'm gonna tension these up. I'll probably actually make the non-drive side a lot closer to the drive side, because I usually like them pretty tight, because I don't like my cleats coming out in a sprint, or well, I just don't like them coming out unexpectedly. So I'm going to torque those up and then give it another ride soon. Fortunately, I got the XPEDO pedals just in time for a trip that I had planned to Colorado. So we just finished a climb up to Jamestown, and they were great. I ended up putting one all the way tension and then -1 on both sides, and I think that that's the perfect amount of tension. Well, for me anyway, for these. But they were light. They were in and out pretty easy. Good in and out of the saddle both ways, whether I was putting a lot of power out or just a little bit. I was pretty happy with them. So our second ride in Colorado was climbing Flagstaff, which is arguably one of the most challenging climbs in North America. If you feel differently, please, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to respond as respectfully as I can. So I had my 182-pound pure climber colleague, friend, to try out the M-FORCE 8 pedals on his bike, while I use the R-FORCE 6, because why have a 165-gram set of weight weenie pedals if you're not going to use them, right? So I asked him for his impressions, and they felt really secure while pedaling. He got in and out of them really nicely. Most importantly, the spindles are still straight, and at 182 pounds, it's right on the cusp of the 187-pound limit for the titanium spindle that's in the M-FORCE 8. So that's a ringing endorsement for the pedals. With just shy of 500 miles on the XPEDO M-FORCE 8, I just want to have a quick look at places where we see contact here. Just zoom in here a little bit. You can see where the metal SPD cleat is making contact with the top of the pedal there. And then also clearly we can see that it is making contact here with the rubber surface on the shoe. And then what happens is, as you compress in on the pedal, as you push down on it, the metal interface of the cleat will make contact here. So you can see a little bit of wear there. That's all very normal. And this is actually exactly the way that it ought to be. So there's a little bit of movement that's allowed. And then I'll just show the side-to-side movement here. Now, this is pretty tight. I like my pedals pretty tight. So that, obviously, if you leave this a little looser, you're going to have more side-to-side movement that will be allowed. But that's pretty good, and this is pretty good. Notice that it's a little bit white there, and that's because at about 300 miles, 350 miles, something like that, it started to squeak a little bit, which is pretty normal, and that's why I keep this around. Most of the SPD cleats that SPD cleat and pedals that I've used do exhibit this problem from time to time, and from what I can tell, it's the noise of the metal on metal as it interfaces with the cleat and the pedal. You get a little bit of like a grinding, squeaky noise occasionally, but this dry film lubricant, I think it's a silicone spray, works really well to sort that bit out. So I thought it would be useful to briefly go over some of the differences, or what makes the M-FORCE 8 unique in the pile of SPD pedals that are available out in the market. So just going to quickly run through what we have here. This is the XPEDO R-FORCE 6, XPEDO M-FORCE 8, Bike Smart zigzag pedal. Oh, sorry, this is the Bike Smart zigzag pedal. This is the Shimano M520 and the Shimano M540. There are two key differences between these pedals and these pedals. So the XPEDO pedals here, both of these have titanium spindles, which makes them a much lighter pedal than the steel spindle pedals that are over here. The trade-off for that is that they're weight limited. XPEDO rates them to 85 kilos or 187 pounds, where there is no weight limit on any of these steel spindled pedals. The titanium does make it cost more as well. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that weight savings, you pay for it quite significantly in contrast to some of these other pedals here. So looking at these pedals versus this one here, this is the only single-sided SPD pedal in the mix. And then obviously, because it's single-sided, there are some trade-offs involved. First off, it's harder to get into because there's only one side to get into versus, two sides on there. The platform is quite a bit smaller on this pedal versus any of these other pedals, including the M-FORCE 8. But there's a big trade-off here in weight, and we'll weigh them all in a moment here. Moving from the M-FORCE to these other pedals, you can see that the platform is much bigger on all of these other pedals versus this pedal. And here the trade-off is weight savings. The M-FORCE 8 is significantly lighter than any of these pedals. But you give up a little bit of platform size, which if your cleats are all mucked up with ice or gravel or mud or something, having a bigger platform can make it a little bit easier to pedal if you can't get your cleat into the pedal. I haven't experienced that with the M-FORCE 8, even when my cleats have gotten a little bit cluttered. The M-FORCE 8 has done a good job of clearing out the cruft that's gotten stuck in there, much better than the R-FORCE 6, which doesn't have the same kind of... it's a strange thing, but it doesn't... I'm able to clear it out much easier on the pedal or around it on the M-FORCE versus the R-FORCE. But that's definitely something that if you do a lot of heavy gravel riding or mud riding or something like that, then you might want to lean on a pedal that's has a bigger platform for that reason. But I ride on the road even in the wintertime, and I haven't had any issues with gravel or mud or ice or anything with this pedal. I would say from a quality perspective, the Shimano pedals and the XPEDO pedals are very close. This Bike Smart pedal, it is quite a bit lighter than either of the Shimano pedals, but it can be a little bit tricky to get your foot out of it sometimes. I've never had a problem with it. I've never gotten stuck or anything, but it requires a little bit different technique than these pedals do to get out of it. So that's just a little bit of a learning curve. I guess similar in concept to the learning curve from using a single-sided pedal versus a double-sided pedal, but just something to keep in mind. But it is quite a bit lighter than these Shimano pedals. I would say probably the next thing to do is get some weight on these so you can see the difference here. We'll start with the lightest one, which is the R-FORCE 6. So that's 83 grams. Then the M-FORCE 8, 108. Then the Zigzag, Bike Smart Zigzag pedal, 148. Then the Shimano M-520, 176. And the Shimano M-540, 187. So, as you might have noticed, it didn't take very long before one of these pedals equaled twice this, or the set of pedals, which, is why I have these, because they are the ultimate weight weenie pedal. for SPD riders. But there are trade-offs involved with riding this pedal that you don't have to take on when you ride the M-FORCE 8, and you still see a very significant weight savings for this pedal, this double-sided M-FORCE 8, versus any of these other pedals, even my next lightest pedal, which is the Zigzag at 148 for the pedal. All right, so it's final thoughts time for the XPEDO M-FORCE 8 titanium SPD pedal. There's no getting around the fact that it is an expensive pedal. The SRP is $269. You could find it for significantly less than that for real price, but even the real price is still a very expensive pedal. If you need some tips on where to find it for that, just let me know, and I'll happy to point you in the right direction. There is a cheaper version of it, which comes with a chromoly spindle, 45 grams heavier, which still makes it a very light SPD compatible pedal. The SRP for that is $189, and there's no weight restriction. So for riders who are over 85 kilo, it would be an option for you. It is a very high quality pedal. I have no complaints with it. It works, and it works very, very well. And my 182-pound pure climber friend said essentially the same thing when he tried them out. But the cleats that come with it are confusing. I don't understand why XPEDO puts the effort into making such nice pedals and then ships them with heavy cleats that are functionally equivalent to the Shimano SPD cleat that work just as well with the pedal as the cleat that comes with it, but it weighs less. And that's kind of the point. The point is that you want to reduce the weight of the whole system. And with those massive weight savings versus the other SPD pedals, you get a double-sided pedal that doesn't have quite the same trade-offs that you have to take on if you move to the even lighter XPEDO R-Force 6, which is single-sided. It doesn't have quite the same. The platform size isn't the same, and you don't get the because there's a much smaller pedal. It doesn't the shoe, the rubber bits on the side, both sides of that don't sit evenly on the pedal, so it's more of that metal to metal interface all the time. And you get stickers, which is great. And so I guess the question is, would I buy them? And the answer is, yeah, I would. Even though I already bought the R-Force 6, I would buy the M-FORCE 8 because the R-Force 6 isn't a great pedal for riding in the wintertime. And it's not as easy to get into as the M-FORCE 8 is for riding around in like high traffic areas where you have to stop quite frequently, so you're in and out of the cleat quite often. So I think that in those scenarios it would be worth it for me to have both sets of pedals. Hopefully you found this useful. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments or want to say anything, really, just leave that in the section below, and I'll do my best to respond as quickly as I can. Thanks for watching.